Hi everyone. I'd like you to stop and think about the five senses: sight, touch, and hearing. They've all been automated, they've all been miniaturized, they've all been digitized, and they're all in your smartphone. But where is the sense of taste and smell? If we could get these into a smartphone, we'd achieve the holy grail of sensing, the Star Trek tricorder device, a device capable of medical diagnosis, environmental monitoring, detection of life forms, and chemical analysis. As a kid, I loved to watch Star Trek religiously, and I often wondered how we could make such a device work. It's only later that I realized the key to this device is the detection of volatile organic chemicals. Why? Because these small chemicals are everywhere. Plants, animals, humans are pumping them out, and food and other biological commodities are full of them. All living things produce these chemicals through the process of metabolism. And they're all information about the state of these biological systems. They are, as I love to say, a chemical language waiting to be interpreted. For example, you've heard the old saying, your eyes are the window to your soul. Well, your lungs are the window to your state of health. There are more than 2,000 different kinds of volatile organic chemicals present on your breath. And numerous studies have shown these are indicators of diseases like cancer, heart disease, Parkinson's, malaria, tuberculosis, to just name a few. But unfortunately, current volatile sensing technologies just don't cut it. They're either too slow, so can't provide an answer in real time, or not accurate enough because they don't have the sensitivity or selectivity required. And if they are accurate, they're hard to access because they're large machines housed in centralized labs, needing an expert with a PhD to not only run the machine, but also to interpret the data. So what's the solution? Well, nature has already solved this challenge. 400 million years of evolution has produced the ultimate volatile detection tool. And that's the very receptor proteins that insects use to smell. What's amazing is that these receptor proteins can be used to detect a whole wide range of things as long as there's a volatile signal. For example, a fly's antennae can be used to detect cancer cell lines, as well as explosive and drug compound precursors. Bees, which I love to call the dog of the insect world because they can be easily trained, can be used to detect COVID, explosives, and pests in the field. And recently, a species of ant has been trained to smell the presence of a tumor on the basis of volatiles coming from urine samples. So how do insects smell? Well, the first thing we need to recognize is the sheer diversity of molecules which make up the world of smell, or as I like to call it, the smellyverse. There are over 100 million known volatile organic chemicals, and potentially up to 400 times of these in existence. So it's not practical for nature to evolve a protein for every single volatile organic compound. So nature has been incredibly clever. It's evolved proteins that combine hundreds, if not thousands, of different volatile organic chemicals. And it's the combination of these protein receptors and the response of these protein receptors which enables the detection of millions of different smells. So how does an insect olfactory receptor work? Well, an adult fly has 45 different receptors which it uses to navigate its world. And each receptor shows a distinct response strength to each chemical in its panel. So it's the combination of these responses which produces a unique fingerprint response for a smell. For example, When a fly smells a banana, it detects the response of those 45 different receptors to all 246 compounds present in a banana's aroma. This fingerprint response is the key to smell. The fly takes this fingerprint and searches its memory to find a match. I can smell a banana. Time for lunch. So how does each olfactory receptor actually work? These receptors are found within fine hairs which cover an insect's antennae. Here's a cross-section of one of those hairs. You can see in blue the olfactory receptor neurons, and attached to them are dendrites. When volatile organic chemicals fly through the air, they hit the surface of these fine hairs and enter tiny holes, enabling them to be dissolved into liquid. Then they are transferred to where the dendrites are. And this is where all the action happens. Sitting within the dendrite membrane are olfactory receptors. And here's a cross-section of one. These are ion channels. So when a volatile chemical binds to the receptor protein, it actually causes positive ions to be transported through the receptor into the dendrite. Essentially, the volatile compound turns the receptor on like a tap, creating a flow of ions, which then causes the neuron, which is attached to the dendrite, to send a little electrical signal to the brain. So we ask the question, can we create a sensor underneath in order to harness these receptor proteins to produce an insect nose on a chip? And that's what we set out to do. I thought it would take 3 years to work out how to make these receptors in the lab and how to integrate them into sensors. Instead, it took 20 years of my life and counting. Our eureka moment came when we saw the incredible sensitivity of these purified receptor proteins. We were able to detect down to femtomolar levels, which is the equivalent to parts per quadrillion concentrations. That's equivalent to 1 drop of water in 20,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So when we attach insect olfactory receptors to sensors, they are 1,000 times more sensitive than a dog's nose, and 1,000,000 times more sensitive than the human nose. So right now, Scentian Bio is creating an insect nose on a chip. To do this, we are taking an array of receptors and coupling them to the chip and reading their ion channel activity in response to a sample, for example, the smell of a banana. Then the combinatorial response pattern or fingerprint that is produced is compared with a library of fingerprints using artificial intelligence to find a match and make a diagnosis. It's a banana. Time for lunch, Andrew. However, I just want to assure you that I haven't spent the last 20 years of my life developing a technology to detect bananas. That would be bananas if that was the case. This is a technology with the potential to detect anything by anyone, anywhere, as long as there is a volatile chemical signature associated with it. So just imagine if you could detect a disease on your breath simply by blowing onto your phone. Well, towards this goal, we have just recently received $1.7 million US from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation towards the development of a diagnostic tool for the detection of tuberculosis. However, I'm not at a health conference, am I? I'm at actually a food and fiber conference. So let's talk about the massive opportunity in food, all the way from the farm to the plate. Imagine if you could put sentinel devices in the field to detect the presence of a pest or a disease early enough so you'd only have to spray a small portion of your crop to knock it out. Imagine if you could judge perfectly the right time to harvest a crop, if the fruit was ripe enough or had reached the right stage of development. Imagine if you could detect food safety issues in your processing plant right at the source before the product is shipped. Imagine if you could determine the quality of your ingredients arriving at your company simply by smelling their aroma. Imagine if you could turn what is normally a subjective measure of quality by human sensory panels into an objective measure in the form of a digital fingerprint. Imagine if you could know which produce is ripe enough to purchase at your local supermarket and not struggle at the avocado stand, brutalizing that poor avocado to make sure that it's ripe enough to eat. And imagine if you could monitor your wellness on a daily basis to guide you on what kind of diet changes you need to make to improve your health. We've already nailed sight, touch, and sound. If we can nail taste and smell, the possibilities are limitless. It's just down to our imagination. And here's the good news. We're so close. We should have the tech ready for customers to play with in 2 years' time. Thank you very much.